Hi guys, welcome to this video. Welcome to this channel. My name is Laura from Pleiadian Healer at pleiadianhealer.com. And today we're going to go through some material. So someone sent me the Sergeant Schultz channel on Rumble, and I had completely not forgotten about him, but somehow I think he disappeared from a few other platforms. He has a few versions butchered together, like video edited together, and it has to do with Teal Swan. So I want to play one of those because he actually has a few from my life. This is a live that I did back in 2020. I think it was March, April 2020. If I'm not mistaken, it was the Spiritual Ego Guru YouTube live where I just mentioned my impressions on a few of these ego gurus already. So this is straight up, in lockdown, everyone's doing a live and everything. I don't have that live anymore. And so it's good to see that he somehow recorded it. And then he has another live. I forgot, I think this was in September of 2022. So I'm going to mostly play this. And then he took a different version, like a different review as well right here. So the entire video is around 19 minutes long. If you're interested in seeing that, I'll put the link to his channel below. But basically, I just want to go through the impressions that he got. So one of the YouTube lives that he has. And so basically the entire thing with Teal Swan is going to show you a few articles. The entire issue with Teal Swan is ever since the Hulu documentary came out. Was it Hulu? Teal Swan Hulu documentary. Yeah, the Deep End Hulu, the Cult of Teal Swan. So ever since that came out, it's incredibly hard to review anything of her stuff. And that's unfortunate, but it is just what it is. So I'm not going to take any of her material, like her videos or whatever. It would make more sense to do that, obviously, but I just got to work with the articles that I have. And then I'll play you the impression video. Teal Swan has been on the list for a little while, obviously. I think a lot of people following my channel know what I think about her. Her energy is very off. Already kind of conveyed in previous videos, especially my old channel, that I believe when she had a section on her about, which unfortunately the about section was changed from 2020 to now. So she used to have a different about section, which is fine. We all evolve, right? But basically, she had this about where she was writing about her childhood, how she grew up in something similar to a cult or even a cult or whatever. I don't know if it was Mormon culture or something related to that. She grew up in Utah, but she was born somewhere in New Mexico, supposedly, according to her website. So she had this entire paragraph, like she had a very extensive paragraph written on it. I didn't take a screenshot, whatever, maybe should have in hindsight. And then I said in a few YouTube lives that I think the story she's giving us on her about page, which I meant the story from 2020, because that's the last time I actually checked it out. I think that is very accurate and very true. However, the thing that's not true is that the cult has to do with the controllers, not so much like being a religious cult or being whatever cult. It has to do with the maybe perhaps Illuminati or whatever. I also use the word CABAL, which I'm going to spell that out like that. So she's more in that cult than just whatever she said, whatever cult it is. So she was basically abused and assaulted and all of that. I think that part is very true. But I think the cult that she mentions, she's not saying the full story in that sense, because the cult has to do with whatever they do to celebrities as well, right? To take them under control. They do all these rituals and sacrifices or whatever with them. That's more the energy that I was picking up on. So kind of like she twisted the story a little bit. So she's rubbing it in our faces, but not really. So people who are energetically sensitive to that, like me and others, we can pick up on what exactly she means by that. But other people who were kind of following her and were kind of being in what people are saying a cult, the Teal Swan cult or whatever they mention, they weren't really energetically sensitive enough to that, because she kind of roped them in through that, it appears. So documentary's out. I have not seen it. I don't have any interest in seeing it, but here's another one that I was looking up. Did Teal Swan suggest suicide? So you see a whole bunch of articles. I think the first one I came across was from 2014, 2015. Here's a very interesting one. So this is from decider.com. Who's Teal Swan, the spiritual leader at the center of the deep end, the documentary on Hulu. The best way to describe her is as an American spiritual leader. Though she never sought to become a leader, according to that documentary. Her current career started around 2011 when she published her first book, and then her YouTube page has 1.25 million followers. Instagram has so many followers. She's hosted numerous events for her followers. I had a friend back in 2014 who actually attended one of her events in Massachusetts. I believe it was Boston or somewhere around there. It was 2013, 2014. And he was a huge follower of her stuff. And he tried to rope me in with that too. He's like, oh yeah, just follow her Facebook group, because she has a Facebook group, it appears, or just do this, do that. And I'm like, I'm not really drawn to her energy. Even back in 2014, when I wasn't really into any of those, I could already feel there's something off, it's not really, the person's not really who they appear to be, and there's something behind it. So she was raised in Logan, Utah, which has a large Mormon population. Claims she never fit in, she was bullied, she was sexually abused as a kid. So I think all of that is true to a degree, but it wasn't like the Mormon population, it was more like the actual controllers who did that to her. And then she was like tortured and raped and all of that. And yeah, of course it's awful, don't get me wrong, but that's kind of how they get these kids under their control from a very early age on. So the story is a bit twisted here. She's saying something about blood sacrifices and all of that. I can put this article below for you to read. Then there's another one, which is quite interesting, because I have my own version of suicide on my channel, which I thought it was fitting to air right before this review for obvious reasons, to have a different perspective on it, right? So in short, suicide, from my understanding, has a lot to do with the matrix controllers trying to take these targeted souls out of the system prematurely, so that you can't accomplish what you want to hear, or so that you can't really wake up fully. You have to start from scratch again, reincarnate in the soul recycling trap over and over again. And suicide is basically them pushing that thought pattern and process onto you through certain frequency waves, through certain suggestions. Like our thoughts can be controlled very easily, especially with the Wi-Fi, everything we have currently, through all of that, through entities in your field too, in addition to suicide being an imprint that kind of carries over from previous lives. So if you had, for example, died in a previous life or taken your life, you carry that imprint with you, meaning it's familiar, there's maybe something there that's not overly scary for you, and you might be more inclined to have suicidal thoughts. So there's a lot that goes into it, okay? A whole lot that goes into it. I grew up in an area where I actually, like I already mentioned in that video, I actually knew a few people who tried to commit suicide. Not all of them were successful, but I know the area I grew up in, which is in a part of Germany, where they had a lot of wars fought around there, like World War I, World War II, and probably even hundreds of years before that. There's a lot of dark energies floating around there because of that. Okay, so I know it's a lot of energy and entity attachment on people, in addition to them trying to, by them I mean the matrix controllers, the ones who want to steer this video game, them trying to take you out. So they don't want you to be alive, because the most powerful that we are is when we're alive and incarnated here, because we have the potential to wake up and to wake other souls up too, which you can't on the other side of the veil. And so it's interesting to me that someone like Teal Swan is in the crossfire of suggesting that suicide's not a bad option, which is basically what this article suggests, okay? This article contains descriptions some readers may find upsetting. All right, I guess that's a disclaimer beforehand. Teal Swan is a self-declared spiritual teacher who calls herself a personal transformation revolutionary and spiritual catalyst. I remember back in 2014, that was kind of her tagline, because that was the first time I checked her website out, and I was like, spiritual catalyst, what is that even? And my one friend was so enamored by her until he stopped following her a few years later. So she was born as Mary Teal Bosworth, supposedly. Mary Teal. I wonder if teal means something too. It's like a color, right? All these Marys, they're pushing on us as well. You'll notice Mary everywhere. Once you start seeing Mary once, you notice them everywhere. I feel they're really trying to push that name somehow. Iram in reverse. So you always got to reverse words to get more of the code that they want to push. But basically, her intention is to help people who are in crisis. And many people say her teachings have helped them when they were suicidal. But then there's critiques accusing her of risking the glorification of death. Mental health experts that I spoke to called some of her approaches irresponsible and dangerous. Okay, so there's this one example about a Sarah. I guess Sarah joined the group, the private Facebook group that my one friend was talking about back in the day too. And she was like, I want to kill myself. What to do if you're suicidal? So that's already pretty dark to even post online. If you don't have anyone in person to talk to, I guess that's already a pretty miserable situation to be in. On the other hand, it might be simpler to talk to strangers about this than your parents or friends. I do understand that too. So then Teal Swan had a video and it was suggested to her. And I'm going to read this part. In the video, Swan urges those who are feeling suicidal to seek medical help, but goes on to say that in her experience, for some people, this may not help long term. She instead suggests that suicide be seen as our safety net or our reset button that's always available to us. She argues that viewing it in this way enables people to set the idea aside and instead concentrate on what they can do to make themselves feel better in the present. She also suggests an exercise in which viewers are told to lie down on the floor and imagine their deaths in grisly detail. For me, this almost sounds satanic. I'm going to be honest. Swan argues in the video that by doing so, viewers will realize that there is nowhere to go but back to life. So why leave? I doubt that's what see, this is why it's so dangerous. Like, these are not certified therapists. If a certified therapist would ever say something like this, they would have their license taken away. They would have a lawsuit on their back. They would be discredited by the entire system they went through. But because you're in the spiritual community, just like we've seen with a lot of these other new age gurus, you can just suggest whatever you want and you have the following of 1 million people. People are going to believe you because that's the cult mentality they're in. She stresses in the video that killing oneself would create a devastating ripple for loved ones, and it doesn't matter if you are here or not here. You don't want to die. What you want is an end to your pain. Video was among the top results in a Google search on terms related to suicide when we viewed it in early November. So her mother was furious, mother of the girl or whoever. And then just 2 weeks after that, Casey posted about her initial suicide attempt. She shot herself and died. Oh, so I guess she had a suicide attempt, then she actually shot herself and died. So some people are trying to pin the suicide on one of Teal's videos, it appears. But yeah, so that's pretty sad. Now, if you go to her site, you'll see similar what the video is saying. So this is an article, what to do if you're suicidal. Know that you can always kill yourself tomorrow. In fact, you can always kill yourself in 5 minutes. So this is a pretty bad, I'm going to admit, this is a pretty bad suggestion. Why even put that in there if you're trying to help people? Suicide can be your safety net in that it is always available to us. This will enable you to put suicide aside for a moment, and instead you can live with this in mind. I can always commit it tomorrow. Why do it today? I doubt this is, if someone's purely suicidal, I don't think this is going to help, honestly. Know that your body is wired, makes it so, know that the way our body is wired makes it so pain has a way of doing 2 things. So the entire article, honestly, is not, in my opinion, right. Imagine dying. If you're suicidal, you've been toying with the idea of fully giving up on life and killing yourself. To me, this sounds like a satanic ritual somehow. Like if I didn't know it better, I would say, you know, those people that kind of live off of these rituals, that kind of feast off of it. This is what it sounds like to me. I'm not saying she is that. It's, to me, it sounds like that. Okay. Imagine how you want to kill yourself, where you want to kill yourself. Yeah, nothing about this. And so, like, you already saw that one girl, she ended up killing herself, right? After she joined her Facebook group and everything. So everything about this article, even just reading it, makes me very, very sick. I hope no one with suicidal thoughts is watching this right now. If you are, watch my suicide video, because that tells you a bit more. So we're going to go ahead and just play this part right here. So this is from Sergeant Schultz. And it's just like 2 or 3 minutes long. This is like a live I did back in September on my channel, one of my channels. People were asking about Teal Swan. How do you feel about Teal Swan? Yeah, I'm not sure if I want to make a video on her. I already had like a few lives kind of mentioning her. I mean, she's from an early age, they traumatized her, right? And then kind of set her in that role somehow. So she doesn't even care about other people, is what I got from her energy. I kind of saw like a leash behind her back in 2020. So she was definitely. So this is when I analyzed your energy in one of her videos. And it literally felt there was some entity controlling her, similar to all these other people like Archaics, Elizabeth April, Full Good. There's this energy behind them. And what's also funny, because that one live that I had mentioned that, but it's not there anymore. What's funny is that I also saw her as a cheetah, the cheetah or lion, not a lion, but similar like the wildcat. She's kind of like a wildcat. You know, when you have these intense visions on someone, like kind of like a wildcat, and she was like laughing like a hyena. That's kind of how I saw her energy. It was quite disturbing. I do have to say that. This is me purely reading the energy of a person. Directed by these other entities, let's put it that way. But she is legit. I almost feel like her personality is split in so many different directions. It's kind of like a personality disorder. So when young kids are traumatized from such an early age on through all of these rituals that the elite pushes on them, which I strongly believe the elite did that, not like a Mormon cult, by the way, it fractures everything, the personality, the egos, the everything. And this is possibly what could have happened to her. Her laughing wildly sometimes, and it's not funny at all. That's always a sign of not psychosis, but kind of like maybe bipolar personality, like some different, maybe schizophrenia, I don't know, like different types of personality disorders going on with this person. And I know usually those happen in childhood with traumatic experiences. So they must have really traumatized her from childhood on and kind of split her in all these different directions through these different programs that they have. One of them being the M and then K and then ULTRA. But this is exactly what she wrote on her about page, or what the articles mentioned. There's something in childhood that happened to her. We're not getting the full story. And she's playing around with that story too. It keeps changing a bit if you pay attention to it. If you've been following her for the past 10, 11 years, you'll notice that. So maybe there's even a former cult member who wants to comment below on that and who's like, oh yeah, I noticed that too, or whatever. Starting with M and ending with K and then with the Ultra. So that's really what I saw with her, that she doesn't give an F because she doesn't have compassion, because they kind of broke her down to that extreme when she was very young. And then my friend was also part of her cult back in 2014, and it took him a while to get out of that mentality. But there are also other people on YouTube talking about how they fell for the Teal Swan cult and how to get out of that and how it was such a traumatizing experience. So I'm not sure I really want to review her stuff, because for me personally, I never was under her spell. She always had a very dark energy to me, but it might be something to consider. If you have any comments on it, definitely comment below this video or in the live stream. So like I said, it's incredibly hard nowadays to review her actual stuff. That's why we're doing the article review. And I'm just reading a question in the live stream. My boyfriend is saying, I used to watch her a lot and liked her videos. just wondered how you felt about her, like she's in a cult. I do think she's in a cult, not necessarily that she's creating the cult, but that she's a part of it, and she's just the main key player they set in it. But she's controlled by all the people around her that you see in the videos around her too, like those men that you always see. Yeah, so basically what I meant by that is people are like, oh, she's the cult leader, but the impression I had more was there are other leaders above her, behind the scenes. Like some of them could very well be the men that you see in her videos, or the people that are setting up her videos somehow. And that she's basically just the puppet in that entire game, if that makes sense. And so obviously she doesn't care much. She's getting whatever out of it. I mean, she's basically just, you know how you play chess, you have the chess play. She's basically just one of those that they can move around to their liking. And because of the trauma she experienced in childhood, possibly that's how she got into that situation. The question is if she belongs to a certain bloodline they were trying to get to, if her family kind of sold her off. You know, Britney Spears, for example, you kind of know her family sold her off to that. Was it similar with Teal Swan, or why Teal Swan? Why did it get to her? So there must be a story behind that, but obviously to the normal person like us, it's not going to be revealed anytime soon, or only if you have access to those type of files, which are going to be deeply buried somewhere else where normal people may not have access to. But all I can say is you start reading people's energies, you'll see a lot. And with her specifically, the energy stays a lot. And yeah, I hope this helped a little bit. Thank you so much for tuning in, for sharing your impressions. Really appreciate each and every one of you, and see you very soon. You can view all of my information on my website, pleiadianhealer.com, and talk to you in the future. Bye, guys. Have a lovely one.